Springboks against Australia, opening game of the Rugby Championship. Which way is it going to go? What are the key areas? Let me know in the comments down below, because that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video, looking ahead to an absolute cracker of a game. I'm really looking forward to this one tomorrow. Springboks Wallabies Rugby Championship round one. I think we're going to get a great championship this year. Also, whilst you're here, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, then I would absolutely love it. The first question I want to pose at the start of this is something I mentioned in the video I did looking back at the Australia team news from yesterday, is to what impact does the Lions tour have on this Wallabies team? And are they going to be more battle hardened as a result of it? Because they have played 3 test matches, 4 if you want to include the Fiji game in the build-up, their preparation has been very different. They have been involved in a pretty intense series where they've been under pressure. Does that benefit them in heading to South Africa rather than if they had just been in training camp? And it's always a fine balance, right? Do you want to be battle hardened or do you want to be rested? Do you want to have time in camp working on combinations and really gelling as a team, or do you want to be playing matches? And I never know exactly what the perfect balance is here, but I do think in the context of this Australia team, given what they look like against Fiji, what they look like in the first test against the Lions, and then the contrast of what they look like in tests 2 and 3, is I think it will really benefit this Australia team. Doesn't mean they're going to rock up at Ellis Park and win, because that is one hell of a challenge in itself. The Springboks are so strong, we know all about their credentials, but I do think it possibly helps Australia in this sense. The fact that they have had that series, yes, they picked up injuries as well, and we can talk about fly half. Rob Valentini is still missing. Nick White's had to come out of the shortest retirement ever to play in this game because Jake Gordon has that hamstring injury. There are obvious issues for Australia, and they have some bumps and bruises off the back of that series. But I just think overall it could be a positive for them. Do you agree? I just think it means we might see a slicker, more battle-hardened Australia team, and frankly, being battle-hardened heading to face South Africa, I think is no bad thing. In terms of the game itself, when we're talking about the Springboks, we have to talk about power. Can the Wallabies go toe-to-toe with them? Well, maybe. It's a huge challenge for whatever team it is. Australia aren't the most power-packed team in the world. They have some great operators there. Skelton, Gleeson off the bench. I love the back row that the Wallabies have. So they could do it, and I think the bench split in that regard is going to be quite key. Now, it's really interesting that Joe Schmidt said that originally they went 5-3. Ben Donaldson, I think, was due to start at fly half. He picked up an injury right at the end of training before they named their squad, and that's why James O'Connor is starting, and they've gone for a 6-2 split on the bench. So originally, when I saw the Wallabies team news, I thought it might be a case of they knew they had to match power. They needed the 6 forward replacements because they needed as much power, physicality and forward reinforcements in the team as possible to be able to go toe-to-toe of the box. But maybe it wasn't the case. Actually, they were trying to go 5-3, and listening to Joe Schmidt's press conference, he said that actually their focus is on themselves. They're in kind of year 2 now of this project and developing, and 5-3 was actually what they wanted to do. I still felt like 6-2 might have been a good option, and I think it's good that they have gone that way. I've seen plenty of people pointing out as well, are the Springboks and Rassie Erasmus going to have a last-minute change here and Snowman comes onto the bench and they go 6-2, whether there's kind of a bit of chess or poker being played here? We'll wait and see exactly what happens. Power game, absolutely crucial. It always is against the Springboks. How long can the Wallabies hold in the fight and stay in the fight? For periods against the Lions, they were excellent. The issue was sustaining it over a whole game. The game they were able to do that, the third test, they ended up winning, which was to do with other factors as well, but it's no coincidence. The other part of the game plan that I wanted to mention here is the aerial battle, because that is just becoming, I think, increasingly such an important area of any game, particularly at international level, and I think increasingly a much harder area to be able to predict. The way in which they've changed the laws that you can't kind of chaperone and block off people coming through to protect your fullback or winger or fly half that's under the high ball has made it so much more of a competition. On the one hand, it's been awesome because the competition in the air now is so competitive. I think the flip side to it is it almost feels like a bit of a lottery. And you know how at one point we were seeing the kicking team would send their wingers up and they would just try and bat it back? We're seeing that more now actually with the receiving team. Rather than just going up and trying to catch the ball, even they're often now trying to just bat it back on their side because it is such a lottery in the air. I felt that way in the Lions series. I actually thought it was an area that the Wallabies had over the Lions for a lot of that series. They had success. They've got some great athletes on the wings, or Sualihi if they're going to put him up. The Springboks are good there as well, but it feels to me like that could be really crucial and certainly an area of the game that's well worth keeping an eye on. I'll finish off the video with a question on both teams really. What is success for these teams in this Rugby Championship? To start with the Springboks, quite clearly it's defending their title. Something they've never done in the kind of Tri-Nations Rugby Championship era. This team has so little left to prove really, that you're looking at challenges and milestones and things to keep progressing. And they've always got the World Cup on the horizon a little bit, the Springboks. More than any other nation, I think. They're constantly building towards that. But I think defending their title and winning at Eden Park are the two things in this Rugby Championship for them to be able to really target as significant milestones. That if they've done that at the end of it, you say, it's further notches in the belt of this team that have been exceptional and done everything. Having said that though, I do think we will continue to see an element of rotation in the Boks team. Something they did throughout last year. They rotate so much, partly because they've got so many quality players to bring in, and partly because one thing, I've said it time and time again, and I will continue to probably say it in the future, something Rassie Erasmus has been excellent at since he became the head coach or director of rugby, or whatever his roles have been over the last few years, is building depth in the team, getting players game time and preparing for a World Cup. I think that will be the case again in this Rugby Championship, and I imagine we're going to see them rotate after this game, before they go and play the All Blacks in New Zealand, would be my gut instinct. The problem with the Springboks is half the time when they do rotate, it's like they make 14 changes and they've still got 6, 7, 8, 9 World Cup winners in the team. So when you can rotate like that and you've still got such quality, then yeah, it's a pretty nice position to be in. But that for me is success for the Boks. Springbok fans, what do you make of it? What about the Wallabies? Because that's actually probably a tougher question to answer. It's quite obvious, isn't it, what success is for South Africa. What's success for Australia in this Rugby Championship? Because I'm looking at these games coming up against South Africa, and you think in South Africa, like, it's no shock if Australia are to lose these games. So how do you measure success? And I guess it's progression post-Lions. And it's more than just this one game or the next couple of games. That probably comes into the Rugby Championship as a whole. At the end of the Rugby Championship, are we going to have seen a team that have progressed from where they started it? 2-1 series defeat against the Lions. Excuse me, this post-Lions tour cold is still lingering. From where they are post-Lions, what do they look like at the end of the Rugby Championship? What notable results do they need to pick up? Is being really competitive and in tight games against South Africa and New Zealand, for example, enough, or does it need to be more than that? Do they need to pick up some scalps along the way, as well as winning their games against Argentina? And a big thing, I think, when you look at this Australia team, ultimately, is about building depth and how they're able to do that. It's clearly a thing for Australia. When they have their best team on the pitch, they can mix it with anyone. As soon as they start losing key players, I think pretty quickly they don't have the reinforcements there. So to what extent can they build depth and build continuity and all that sort of stuff with the half an eye on a home World Cup in 2027? I find it much more difficult to answer the question of what success is for Australia in this Rugby Championship. Wallabies fans, let me know down below. So that's my preview. Can't wait for the game. Looking forward to watching it. I'll have a video up after it. Like the video, drop a comment down below and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.